Hello, everyone.
Hello there.
This past week, I read about Christian Wyman, a well known American poet, and for many years, the editor of the Poetry magazine, a very highly respected magazine in poetry circles. And Christian Wyman, he had contact and knew about almost all the known poets, but he didn't regard Mary Oliver very highly. He thought she was writing poems for the general public. She wrote what they wanted. It was easily understandable. So she wasn't a heavyweight.
You couldn't take poetry seriously.
No, no,
It wasn't layered,
no.
according to him, layered
Yes,
enough.
yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, he is this authoritative figure, highly regarded. So, I mean, you can say when Christian Wyman has that opinion, it should
Yeah.
be, it should count for something.
Yes.
But then they had a function in honor of Mary Oliver, the magazine itself, and he went and he fetched her from her downtown in Chicago hotel, and then they went for a stroll just to get to know each other and so on. So Mary Oliver came out with this fairly old coat, overcoat that she wore. And they were walking in the streets of Chicago, talking, getting to know each other. And the next moment, Mary Oliver, she stopped and she picked up this dead pigeon where it was lying on the pavement on the side of the road. And then she started showing Christian where the hawk caught it, the blow of the hawk, how it fell, and so on. So it was almost as if she was reading this pigeon, the evidence. And then, very nonchalantly, she put the pigeon in her pocket, the pocket of the coat, and then they went on with their stroll and had their chat further. And that evening there was a cocktail party, and none of the two uh, were really keen to attend this party, but they went, and somehow they ended up in the kitchen, the two of them, and Mary was still wearing this coat. And there in the kitchen, she took out the dove again. And they carried on with this conversation of the dove, and it had many layers, this conversation with this dove that she carried in a coat pocket. And Christian Wyman's estimation of Mary Oliver changed totally because he realized she's not writing for a market. Mary Oliver writes from what she is or who she is. She is one of the most authentic people that he has ever met.
And the fact that she really knows how to pay attention.
Exactly.
Really can, and in her poems she also says, I know how to pay attention.
Yes.
I don't know how to pray, but I know how to pay attention.
Yes.
And
So
that's so beautiful.
yeah. So he, in the end, he had such a high regard for Mary Oliver. So a meeting in person with somebody can have a big, big influence on us. And if we look back on our lives, we know for a fact that that is true.
Yeah.
That is the case. And I mean, it's merely naming somebody that comes to mind, but there are so many.
So many. I think when we discussed it and said that that might be an interesting conversation, someone that came to mind for me was quite at that stage, advanced in age, Sotho woman Matsepo Kumbane. And she was known as a rain harvester, which in itself is something that I've never heard before. And so when I met her, She absolutely fascinated me. She is just somebody that I can never ever forget in my life. And I think the reason again is because of her authenticity and her genuine interest in everything and in the people that she meets. Every time we would go to her place, she would call out from she would be sitting in front of her little house, and she would call out my name, and she would be so happy to see me. It was so wonderful. But her background was that she was a social worker, and early on, she discovered, or she knew, that you couldn't help people just by feeding them. You had to teach them to survive on their own, how to um, plant and create their own food. And so she started projects where she was teaching people vegetable gardening, but she also developed a whole system, and she had a piece of land, her own property, and she started a garden there, which was absolutely fascinating to visit because she created like sponges,
Mm.
huge room-sized sponges in the ground. So she would dig this room-sized uh, cavity in the ground, fill it up with organic material, and then she would plant a fruit tree on that. And she had these canals that she would see where the rain was coming
Mm.
from, and she would make these canals that would feed into these sponges. So all around her house, she had these fruit trees, and one good rainfall could feed those sponges, she said, for 2 or 3 years.
Mm.
So students from overseas came and did research on her sponges, and there was so many spin-offs or things flowing out of this. She was on the SABC board. She was visited by the Prince of
Of the
Orange of the
Netherlands,
Netherlands, and she
Prince
went
van
there.
Oranje.
Yeah, and she just had such a mir- really such a I would say miraculous life. She was extremely poor. She was living. She was doing subsistence living, and but she made such an impact on my life. Just to see her enthusiasm. She used to talk about helicopter ideas, and she had these big pieces of cardboard that she just cut up cardboard boxes, and then she would in the night, at night when she couldn't sleep, she would be drawing this like systems and ideas on these cardboard boxes that would stand against the walls. And so it was just somebody that I remember so fondly, and that made such an impact on my
Mm.
life.
And when you met her, or should you come across her in the street, you wouldn't say,
No, no. She was like, in Zulu, we would say she was a real magog.
mm.
No airs, no nothing. Um, no award that and she received awards
Whew.
from the government, and she was really somebody also well known. You would never tell. She was
Yeah.
just such a marvelous
She
person.
would matter of factly tell of well known people phoning her, talking to her, and you'll say, "Are you sure?" And I mean, then you see the pictures against her
Mm,
wall.
mm.
Uh, just an
No, that was
amazing
such
picture,
a blessing for me.
but also very authentic.
Yes, exactly. And I think that was it. It was meeting a very real, very authentic, very, uh, it's just this person, this
Mm.
wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah, if I think back on people in my life, strangely, somebody who comes to mind is somebody that I didn't realize had such an impact on my life. And that was Professor Johan Heinz. Um, he lectured in dogmatics and ethics when we studied theology, and it wasn't my favorite subject. Very philosophical, and he was brilliant in that regard, and also a huge tree within the Dutch Reformed Church, but not only in the Dutch Reformed Church, within South African society. Uh, People regarded his viewpoint highly. Um, uh, he served on boards, and he was just a real
Figure.
a figure.
Mm.
And he was one of the lecturers. You didn't take chances with Prof. Haynes. You couldn't just leave the lecture hall when he's 5 minutes late, as you usually do with others. You sat and you waited because you don't take chances. But then in class, he was such a warm, earthy person. Somebody grew up in Potchefstroom, and there was something of that earthiness of rural South Africa that somehow came through and formed the basis of his faith and his view on life and his convictions.
Mm.
And I remember him saying to us, we had one female in the class, and he would say, "Lady and gentlemen, if the Holy Spirit, if my mum were to be the Holy Spirit, I would have received much more spiritual gifts than those that I had received." Or he would say, "Where is God?" And you knew all these heavy answers, and Prof. Haynes would listen, and he said, "Lady and gentlemen, God is just on the other side of everything. He just made this." And it had such an impact. It is so profound. And he loved watching Knight Rider, that car Kit. And
Talking
and
car.
he would say, "Goodness, isn't it amazing, that car flying like it?" So this well-known professor sitting and watching Knight Rider in the evenings, he again very, very authentic. His position didn't go to his head. And it was nice. He had a deep influence even without knowing it.
Yeah.
And I think that's often the case. We don't know where do we influence people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be very interesting to hear about people in your life that made such an impact. And I think we could carry on with this for a long, long time.
Yes.
There are so many people that's made such a impact on us.
Yeah, and we're very grateful for that. We'd love to hear from you, but in the meantime, keep warm, and we'll talk again next week.
Keep well, everyone.
Bye-bye.